I'd just like to say that Carole and I are absolutely delighted by today's announcement.
Well, I'm not sure what I'm able to bring. It's what all these very brave ladies tell me. It's seeing is believing.
In the royal world, where every move is calculated and every word is carefully chosen, no one saw this coming, especially not Queen Camilla. Carole Middleton, mother of the Princess of Wales, was once considered a quiet presence in royal affairs. Now let's turn to Princess Kate's mom, who is sometimes known as Super Granny. Carole Middleton, featured in this week's People magazine, has made a bold and personal decision that's sending actual shockwaves through the palace. Insiders are saying Queen Camilla was left totally blindsided and was even brought to tears by what was happening behind closed doors. So what could Carole have possibly done to spark such an intensely emotional reaction? Let's find out. Let's rewind to Carole Middleton and Queen Camilla behind palace doors, before the huge fanfare of Prince William and Kate's royal wedding in April 2011. It was Prince William and Catherine Middleton's big day, April the 29th, 2011, and all seemed perfectly fine between their two families. Carole Middleton and Camilla, who was the Duchess of Cornwall back then, smiled politely for the cameras, exchanging greetings and posing for family photos. But behind the camera flashes and polite smiles, tensions were already starting to brew. It was subtle, unspoken, but absolutely impossible to ignore. Carole Middleton, a former flight attendant and daughter of a builder. Carole jumped right into the workforce, first at the retailer John Lewis, and later on as a flight attendant, and had built a life of comfort and success through nothing but pure determination. Together with her husband, Michael, she created Party Pieces, a booming party supply company that helped them send their 3 children to some of the UK's most exclusive schools. She was incredibly proud of the life they built. But inside the walls of Buckingham Palace, tradition is everything, and not everyone was impressed by her middle-class background or her growing influence. As Kate and William's relationship started getting more serious, Carole began to notice small but stinging changes in how she was being treated at royal events. While some royals were warm and welcoming, others seemed to intentionally ignore her, offering only cold shoulders and judgmental glances. She would later say it felt like she was being treated as if she wasn't even in the room, a message that was loud and clear. This was a massive contrast to Camilla, who was born into the aristocracy and fit right into the royal family's ways. She knew all the unwritten rules of rank and hierarchy, and supposedly spoke often about the importance of lineage and knowing your place. The tension only got worse in the lead-up to the royal wedding. Carole really wanted to add some personal touches to the huge event. She wanted subtle, meaningful gestures from the Middleton family that would show their warmth and how close they were. But almost all of her ideas were quickly brushed aside with very little discussion. Decisions about simple things, like the flowers or even the guest list, were made without her, reinforcing that her role was just to smile and stay quiet. And after the wedding, those tensions never really faded. They just got quieter and a whole lot stronger. Carole started noticing her access to Kate was changing. Kate continued her royal duties with grace and professionalism in public. With Kate Middleton stepping up her royal duties, the future queen was now fully back to her royal responsibilities. But Carole could clearly see the toll that it was taking on her. Their visits became much less frequent. Their private time together was frequently interrupted or had to be rescheduled at the last minute. Christmas, once a beloved family tradition, became a source of conflict as royal rules insisted Kate and William spend the holidays at Sandringham. It was a very tough adjustment, not just for Carole, but for Kate as well, who was now stuck between 2 completely different worlds. There was the structured, demanding world of the monarchy, and then there was the warm, comforting embrace of her own family. Trying to keep everyone happy was clearly wearing her down. Then, Prince George was born in July of 2013. As a dedicated mother and an experienced parent herself, Carole naturally wanted to be very closely involved. But the palace had very different plans. Royal nannies were chosen and strict schedules were put in place, leaving little room for Carole to be the hands-on grandmother. Some whispered that Queen Camilla was quietly in favour of these harsh restrictions, an effort to keep the Middletons' family influence from growing. By Princess Charlotte's christening in July 2015, Britain's new royal finally had a name. Princess Charlotte Elizabeth Diana of Cambridge was officially christened on that Sunday. The cracks in their relationship had grown even wider. Carole had planned a small, private party to follow the official ceremony, but at the very last moment, her personal plans were reportedly overruled by Camilla's office, which caused a lot of confusion and deep disappointment. What should have been a sweet family moment became another painful reminder that her role in royal life was being tightly controlled. And so, just beneath the surface of all the royal smiles and grand appearances, a quiet rivalry had been growing, one that wasn't built on public scandals. It was built on years of quiet snubs, unspoken judgments, and her struggle for a place in Kate's new royal world. So what did Carole do to send Camilla spiralling? And could this single moment really fracture the royal family? Keep watching for the silent statement that truly rocked the monarchy. The dust had barely settled from Princess Charlotte's 2015 christening when Carole Middleton's quiet withdrawal began taking shape. What once looked like a subtle attempt to keep the peace between two incredibly different families, the self-made Middletons versus the institutionally entrenched royals, was now becoming something far more intentional. Carole, after putting up with years of being politely pushed aside and systematically left out, made a choice that would slowly change the entire dynamic of her family's relationship with the palace. While she always kept her composure in public, Carole started to distance herself from royal life in ways that were both elegant and strategic. Royal insiders started noticing she was missing from events where she once stood proudly next to her daughter. Her choice, though made quietly, felt like an act of defiance. This wasn't about a rebellion. This was about taking back her own space in a world that had, for far too long, made her feel like an outsider. The years leading to this were exhausting. From 2011, the year Kate and Prince William got married, Carole was navigating a world that wasn't just foreign to her, but also hostile. Royal protocols constantly clashed with her own grounded modern family values, and while she never wanted the spotlight, her very presence was a quiet threat to the old guard, a reminder that real influence could be earned, not just inherited. By 2013, after the birth of Prince George, this silent conflict had become much more intense. Carole's dream of being a deeply involved grandmother was crushed by the rigid rules of the royal nursery. The official royal nannies always took priority, and Carole's offers to help were frequently just waved away. Even scheduling a visit became a huge negotiation, and her attempts to create some normalcy for her daughter and grandkids were always met with pushback. And this wasn't just a matter of social class. This was a battle for control. Queen Camilla, once an outsider herself, now seemed to embrace the very system that had once fought to keep her out. Formerly known as the Other Woman, Camilla is now queen. Over the years, she reportedly became a major force for upholding tradition, pushing for strict compliance with all royal customs. And in doing that, according to royal insiders, she put herself in direct, though subtle, opposition to Carole's growing influence. The result was a quiet but fierce rivalry between the two matriarchs, both mothers, both protective, but from completely different worlds. This simmering tension finally boiled over around Prince Charles's 70th birthday in November of 2018. Prince Charles is celebrating his 70th birthday milestone today. The party was held at Buckingham Palace, bringing together the massive royal family and all of their associates. The Middletons, as usual, were a picture of dignity. But the entire mood of the evening reportedly changed when Carole overheard a chat between Camilla and a few of her old aristocratic friends. As they were discussing the changing nature of Britain's upper class, Camilla is said to have made a sharp comment about new money and the importance of proper heritage over mere financial success. And while she didn't mention any names, the jab was perfectly clear to anyone who understood the family dynamics. For Carole, it felt like a final, brutal reminder that no matter how hard she had ever worked, how perfectly she raised her daughter, or how gracefully she dealt with royal demands, she would always be seen as an outsider. That moment wasn't just humiliating for Carole, it was a moment of absolute clarity. What came next wasn't a public fight, but a quiet retreat. She began pulling back from royal events and stopped trying to fit into traditions where she obviously wasn't wanted. She gave up fighting for invitations and stopped offering advice that she knew would just be completely ignored. Instead, she poured her energy into her own world, her business, her community, and more than anything, her family, in the limited ways she was still allowed. But behind the scenes, Carole was watching. According to several well-placed sources, she started keeping detailed notes on every single interaction that made her feel marginalized. She documented every time a visit with her grandchildren was suddenly cancelled, every time a family plan was changed without asking her first, every time she was quietly shut out from a major milestone in her grandkids' lives. Even more fascinating, through her wide network of business and social connections built over decades, Carole started to hear things. This wasn't just simple gossip, but specific details about financial moves, choices about property management, and very strange patterns of spending. These were things that, while not exactly criminal, started to paint a much bigger picture of how power and access really worked inside the palace. Some discoveries were small things, lavish spending disguised as ceremonial costs, or sudden changes in where charity money was going, or even just the blurred lines between personal luxuries and royal obligations. But for someone as sharp and organized as Carole Middleton, these little details weren't just details, they were leverage. By early 2024, that silent tension between the Queen and Carole Middleton was starting to spill out into the open for everyone to see. In March of that year, at Prince Louis's school concert in London, eagle-eyed royal watchers immediately sensed something was very wrong. Carole and Camilla, who used to pose together for photos, were on opposite sides of the room. Not a glance, not a smile, not even a polite nod. Prince William, always playing the peacemaker, was spotted moving between the two women, trying to smooth over the obvious tension. But the chasm between them was clear to see. And this wasn't just a one-off event. It was the result of years of quiet warfare, unspoken criticism, and carefully maintained distance. And still, through all of it, Carole kept her composure. She never went to the press, never let herself become the story. She taught her children the importance of dignity and respect, and she lived by those same rules herself. Even so, the emotional toll of it all was undeniable when watching other royal grandparents, like Camilla's own grandchildren, being welcomed with open arms while she had to fight for time with her daughter's kids. The contrast was agonizing. And even though Kate tried her best to balance everything, the relentless pressure of royal duty kept fraying the family bonds that once felt so strong. Ever since she joined the royal family back in 2011, the Duchess of Cambridge has championed numerous charities and organisations that she cares deeply about. And though Carole never complained about it publicly, her actions really did speak louder than words. Her gradual step back from palace functions wasn't a surrender. It was a silent protest, a quiet refusal to be seen as anything less than a vital partner in her grandchildren's lives. It was a stand for respect, not just for status. As 2024 rolled on, palace insiders noticed the Queen was getting noticeably colder in her treatment of Carole. Royal staff, once warm and helpful with Middleton logistics, suddenly became tight-lipped and distant. The invitations dried up. Every interaction felt incredibly formal. Even Kate, who had always managed to balance her two worlds so gracefully, started looking more and more conflicted, torn between her duties as a royal and the painful isolation of her own family. Meanwhile, behind closed doors, Carole kept working, not to get revenge, but to document every single slight, every subtle change, every quiet maneuver that exposed how the palace used its power behind that perfect, polished facade. This wasn't just about her own hurt feelings anymore. For Carole, this was about legacy, about something much bigger. She was making sure her family's history wasn't going to be written only by palace spin doctors. She'd raised her daughter to be strong, compassionate, and graceful under incredible pressure. And now, with Kate at the heart of an ever-changing monarchy, Carole was determined to see that those values she taught her wouldn't be erased by titles and tradition. So what exactly did Carole uncover that could bring Queen Camilla to tears? And who else is caught up in this web? Stay with us. We're about to open the briefcase that broke the silence. Just under the surface of perfect royal protocol and those carefully practiced smiles, a storm has been brewing. What began as a mother's private worry is now threatening to shatter the fragile power structure inside Buckingham Palace. And at the centre of this storm, Carole Middleton. For a decade she's been the elegant in-law, the party planner, a master of discretion. But then, on a chilly morning, February 6th, 2025, Carole Middleton showed up at Buckingham Palace with no photographers, no assistants, and just a briefcase. Insiders say what happened next wasn't a cosy chat, it was a showdown. Sources inside the palace insist Carole's visit wasn't just about emotion, it was completely strategic. Inside that briefcase, real documents, financial records, timelines, names. Officially, the palace has said nothing about the contents, but the rumours are swirling about secret, off-the-record meetings in Switzerland, bank transfers hidden by shell companies, and a slow, calculated campaign to push the Middleton family out of the royal inner circle. But what Carole presented wasn't just about money, it was about power and influence. For the last few years, very subtle changes had been happening. Missed invitations, being quietly excluded from family moments, royal roles reassigned without any explanation. Individually, they seemed like nothing, but taken together, Carole saw the pattern, and she wasn't about to let it slide. And the one person allegedly pulling all the strings? Queen Camilla. Those who were there say Camilla's reaction was completely out of character. Queen Elizabeth herself declared that Camilla, the Duchess of Cornwall, should one day be known as the Queen Consort. But the usually composed Camilla reportedly left the room completely shaken. An insider even claimed they saw her in tears after looking at the material Carole presented. And this wasn't just about money. No, this was deeply personal. It was a clear reminder that Carole, who everyone had underestimated, was always watching and taking notes. Just hours after her visit, the entire palace atmosphere changed. Meetings were moved. Senior aides, even ones long retired, were urgently called back in. Royal events were suddenly postponed. With no explanation given, the palace stayed completely silent, which only made the rumours fly faster. Then Camilla vanished from the public eye for 10 straight days. When she finally reappeared on March 11th for Commonwealth Day, her typical confidence was gone, replaced by a quiet uncertainty. Body language experts noted she seemed withdrawn, had fewer staff, and kept her interactions incredibly brief. No one had ever seen the Queen Consort this publicly rattled before. Inside the palace, the staff was apparently divided. Sources say those loyal to Catherine viewed Carole's move with a lot of sympathy. But others, especially traditionalists loyal to Camilla, saw it as a disruption. The atmosphere had clearly changed. A new sense of caution filled the halls of Buckingham Palace. Conversations became whispers, and greetings were just quick glances. Even Prince William, famous for his steady composure, appeared to be caught right in the middle. Insiders claim he started meeting with advisors who used to work for his mother, Princess Diana, and nobody missed the symbolism there. Diana, of course, fought her own battles behind those same palace walls. Now royal watchers were all asking, was this Kate's own Diana moment? And soon, the media caught on to the story. Why had all the royal appearances suddenly stopped? Why were there such strange gaps in their schedules? It's said even businesses holding royal warrants began reconsidering their connections. Nothing was proven, of course, but the timing was just too perfect to be a coincidence. Carole Middleton herself said nothing publicly. She went home, ignored reporters, and posted nothing. But that silence spoke volumes. She didn't have to shout or make a scene. Her point had already been made, and for the first time in years the palace was genuinely unsettled. It wasn't crumbling, just uncertain. And for a family that is built on control, that uncertainty is perhaps the most dangerous thing of all. Nobody knows what Carole's next move is. But those paying attention understand one thing. She didn't go to Buckingham Palace that morning just to voice a few concerns. She walked in there to send the monarchy a message. She's not just the mother of a future queen. She is a power player in her own right. And judging by Queen Camilla's tearful exit, that message was received loud and clear. Something else was quietly starting to take shape behind the scenes. A reckoning was on its way, and this time it couldn't be contained by hushed corridors or hidden behind polite royal smiles. So all eyes turned to what was happening behind closed doors, right after Carole Middleton walked out. A silent power play. If Carole Middleton's visit kicked off a reckoning inside the palace, it's her daughter Catherine, who is now quietly directing where it's all headed. What started as whispers of a divide, after Carole's surprise, February 6th meeting has now become something undeniable, a clear, strategic shift in power and presence. And right at the centre of that shift is Kate. From the very beginning, nobody expected Catherine Middleton to fit in so easily. When she married Prince William back in 2011, she entered royal life to polite smiles, but also plenty of private condescension. The aristocracy, with its ancient hierarchies and inherited titles, saw her background as a strange novelty, or maybe even a threat. Her parents' incredibly successful company, Party Pieces, might have been a modern business triumph, but to some people behind palace doors, it was just a reminder that she was, in their view, still a commoner. But Kate never once pushed back against it. She didn't have to. Through the years, she mastered every royal protocol with that same quiet determination that got her a history degree from St Andrews, all while raising Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis. She carefully studied the royal family's ways, especially the Queen's unique brand of silent, steady power. She learned when to speak, how to behave, and crucially, when it was best not to react at all. By the time March 2025 arrived, as Camilla quietly pulled back from public life after the fallout of Carole's visit, Kate stepped up. But she didn't do it with rebellion or drama. She didn't try to seize the spotlight. She just filled the space that had quietly been made available. Suddenly her number of engagements went up. Her voice started carrying more weight in planning meetings. And then came the most notable change of all. Her office was moved. It went from a hidden corner of the palace to a suite just steps from King Charles's own offices. In palace terms, this was more than just a symbol. This was a structural shift. In the monarchy, influence is often measured in proximity, not just pronouncements. Behind closed doors, Prince William reportedly relied more and more on her perspective. Palace aides couldn't help but notice the clear unity between the couple. Suddenly, their public appearances looked more polished, more strategic, and more equal. That spring, William was seen deferring to Kate on several major decisions. She, in turn, provided a fresh perspective, bridging the gap between stiff tradition and the modern world outside palace gates. Even Kate Middleton's fashion choices played a key part in this transformation. She started re-wearing old outfits and mixing high street fashion with high-end couture. It was a subtle but very deliberate move, a royal message of being relatable during a cost of living crisis. The social media accounts under her watch began shifting too. Stiff announcements gave way to much softer, human moments. We saw candid pictures of the children, glimpses behind the scenes, and genuine laughter between their royal duties. The monarchy's image was being reshaped, not with any kind of rebellion, but through a lens of real empathy. And now, in April 2025, the question isn't whether the Middleton family belongs anymore. It's about just how far their influence is destined to reach. Because power inside the palace doesn't just disappear, it moves. And right now, it's undeniably moving in their direction. But I want to know what you think. Is it possible Kate Middleton has quietly become the true force behind the throne, all while nobody was watching? We'd genuinely love to hear your thoughts on this. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe.